All right, new video, welcome. This is going to be a post-apocalyptic double feature. I'm going to be talking about Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes as well as Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. So I saw Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes a little less than a month ago, and I had preceded it by rewatching the Caesar trilogy, and those films I really like a lot. I haven't seen them in a while, but they're great. I think Dawn in particular is nearly a perfect movie. War is also really great, and Rise is pretty good, but it is sort of the beginning, so you sort of get that like, okay, like I really want to get to the good stuff. It's sort of like watching a TV show where you're at the start of season one and you didn't like, you got to like rewatch all the setup stuff, or like watching a superhero movie and you're like, okay, Uncle Ben has to die, then we get to the good stuff. But it is a really great trilogy. I think it's one of the greatest film trilogies ever. And I was excited for this. I thought it would be really good. It looked interesting. I liked that they were continuing within the Caesar continuity. And there's a new director. It's not it's not Matt Reeves. It's the guy who did the Maze Runner films. I don't know his name. And I've never seen any of the Maze Runner films, so this was my first interaction with him from what I know. And I think the film's pretty good, but I think after the Caesar trilogy, it feels really watered down and more of the same that we saw from that trilogy. I think that a lot of the philosophical stuff and the tough questions are asked here that are asked in the previous trilogy, and they aren't asked in as interesting of a way. Without getting into spoilers, there's the human girl character, and her conflict is very similar to Gary Oldman's in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, right? And that question of like, the danger of your species being wiped out and what you will do to keep it intact, and is it right to to put another species beneath you in the process of doing that? And then the interesting aspect of with apes being dominant, like we as human beings are watching the movie and we're thinking to ourselves, oh, like as a human being, I think that I would like the human race to continue. And then you're like, wait, but then they have to basically overthrow the apes if they can't coexist. And, we relate to the apes because we are currently the dominant species on the planet the way the apes are. And we would hate if another species tried to, take us out. So, yeah, I think all that's really interesting, but it was done in the previous trilogy. If the previous trilogy didn't exist, I would think this was really good, but the previous trilogy is really almost perfect. So it does have that unfortunate task to follow up. I do think the characters are interesting, though. I do like Noah, the main ape, played by Owen Teague. And there was this orangutan, I think his name was like Rafa or something like that. I feel like he's not in the movie as much as I was expecting. William H. Macy's also in the film. I think Proximus Caesar was an interesting character, although the stuff with him that I do find frustrating is that we knew that they were going to continue Caesar's story, right? And, essentially his teachings. And this is about 300 years after War for the Planet of the Apes. And I was really looking forward to how it is exactly that some of the apes, the evil ones, have misinterpreted or manipulated Caesar's story and his teachings, primarily, into their benefit and into manipulating the others. And we don't see that at all because they are killing other people. And so that's my biggest disappointment of it, I think. Just that I was really like looking forward to see how they were going to manipulate like the scripture essentially, but we don't really see how they do that. We don't see how ape no kill ape or apes together strong or any of those rules that he established are going to be used to nefarious benefit by Proximus Caesar. I do think he was the best character in the film, but if I could do a little bit of a script doctor here, and my script doctor is based off of the trailer and what I thought the movie was going to be about. Instead, to explore these ideas, I personally would have had, if I was a screenwriter in this film, I would have had that Noah is part of a tribe that is led by a few elders, including Proximus Caesar, and Proximus Caesar and their way of life is all based off of a way that benefits him, that benefits Proximus Caesar. And Noah, he goes out into the world thinking that humans are this evil thing, and that they have the right to hunt them and all that. And then Noah maybe meets a different tribe of apes that thinks differently from his tribe that is run by Proxima Caesar. And then at that point, Noah starts to question his own thought process and the way that he was raised, and comes to the understanding that Proxima Caesar has manipulated the teachings of Caesar, for his own benefit, like I've been saying this whole time. The trailer, to me, I thought that's what the movie was going to be. And maybe that's my fault, but I also do have to say, I think that would have been a better movie than the one we got. Talking about effects, the effects were good, but not as good as in the previous trilogy. They look so real in that trilogy, and in this one, the apes do look, it's more noticeably CGI. That might also be related to the actual filmmaking technique that the different directors use. But yeah, they look so good in Dawn and in War. This looks a bit more like how they do in Rise, where they do look a bit more CGI, and the fur and all that, and the breath and the wrinkles, like, a lot of those really great details aren't really there. I also thought that some of the... I'm just going to go into spoilers here, it's easier. I thought that... Okay, what I was talking about before was the orangutan dies, and I felt that it was super unearned, and I wanted him to stick around. But maybe they thought he was dead weight. I think that the stuff with, like, them being, like, a hawk tribe, that felt... And, like, them with their whole, like, they gotta collect the egg, that felt really young adults in a way that I was not into. Like, it felt like the Hunger Games or Maze Runner, because the guy made Maze Runner. And it just didn't really work for me. It felt like a little bit like, like, I feel like everything with, like, young people in a dystopian future, it's like, oh, are you ready for the collecting? It's like, oh, it's collecting day. And it's like, I really hate stuff like that, where it's like world building that feels forced, and that's really how I felt here. There are rumors that Proxima Caesar is still alive. The actor talked about how we don't see a body. I would like to see him come back, but he's not going to be a Koba, you know what I mean? But I think the film is pretty good. It's just the existence of the previous trilogy really makes it not as good for me and made it a little bit disappointing. So moving on to Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. This was my most anticipated film of the year, period. A little bit of background with Mad Max. I'd seen all of them once, and I rewatched all of them a second time before watching this. Fury Road I'd seen a few times. The first one I like a lot. It's very different. It's basically an origin story. For people who haven't seen it, I usually describe it as like a Batman movie where he doesn't have his parents get killed until the ending. But yeah, it's a solid movie. Very different from the newer Mad Max stuff. Road Warrior is really great. I was really surprised at how much that holds up. It's really good. Beyond Thunderdome, I also was shocked that I liked that one as much as I did on a rewatch, because I know that's the one people tend to shit on. And yeah, it gets a little too Ewok Village at the end with all those kids, but the first part, like the first third of Beyond Thunderdome, I'd say is really great. Fury Road is like a masterpiece, and then here we are with Furiosa. I saw this twice in the theater, second time in IMAX, and it's a really phenomenal film. It's different structurally. It feels like the title of Saga in the title, I think, is really warranted. You're seeing her whole story essentially up to the point of Fury Road. It does a bit of a Rogue One at the end. And yeah, it's insane. It's the kind of madness that you would hope from this series. The action is wonderful. The acting is really good. Specifically, and everyone's saying this, but it's true, Chris Hemsworth is amazing in this film, and I think that it is his best performance ever, probably. He's so much fun to watch. Technically, the film's amazing. A lot of the time, I'll watch movies sometimes, and I'll notice that a long take is going on, and I'll rewind to watch a long take. There are a lot of really great long takes in this film, and I was really glad I got to see it the second time in IMAX, because I got to remind myself, oh, a really long take is about to happen right now, so I get to appreciate it from the very start, in a way where if I'm watching it the first time and I can't rewind, I'm like, oh, damn, like I wish I could go back in time and really like this from the beginning. But yeah, it's really great. The action scenes are spectacular. Anya Taylor-Joy, as you may have heard, doesn't show up until about halfway into the film, and I like that. I like that the movie is like, no, this is a movie about a character. It's not about putting the star in as much of the movie as possible. It's about telling a story. That's what's important. And And the actors, while very talented, are ultimately tools to tell the story. They're the characters. And so yeah, I really like that. I feel like it made under a lot of other studios, the execs could have been like, hey, we need Anya Taylor-Joy and more of the movie, but they didn't do that. And I really like that they focused on Furiosa as a whole. I'm just gonna get into spoilers because it's kind of hard to talk about this without getting into spoilers. Well, firstly, I'll say this. I haven't heard anyone mention this, but I noticed it, and it's that Furiosa at the start of the movie has a whistle, and it's the same whistle that Max uses in Thunderdome to fight the dude in Thunderdome. When he knows he's sensitive to sound, it's like a curved whistle. A lot of people were complaining about the effects in this film. I don't really agree with that. I think that it's deliberately stylistic and exaggerated. I guess I should just go into spoilers. The first time I watched the film, I felt that maybe her desire for revenge wasn't enough. And by that, I don't mean what Dementis does isn't, worthy of vengeance, but that, I think he does kill her mom at the start and makes her watch, and then later she loses her arm and her best friend. But I feel like the vengeance that she desires should come from something that happens much earlier within her childhood. And yeah, I know he killed her mom, but I feel like he should have done more explicitly terrible things to her as a young person, and then because that's just what I'm used to when it comes to revenge. And then they grow up to get the revenge, and so I think for her to want revenge, and a huge chunk of that to be once she's already a grown up with her friend getting taken out and dragged by the dogs, eaten by the dogs and dragged through the dirt. I think that I think it would have it's still good to have that, but I would have liked more of the psychological and verbal abuse from Dementis. Something I really think is fascinating about him is that he's not physically abusive towards her, and I feel like he genuinely does see her as his daughter. I think that's all really interesting, and he's really protective of her. You can see that during the Immortan Joe scene with the hook swinging up in the air and them trying to pull up the car with the cage that she's in. Immortan Joe's in the film. A lot of the characters are in the film. The People Eater's in the film. And there's some reuse actors. One of them I didn't even notice is the guy who he plays one of the War Boys in the previous film, and he plays Stryker in the X-Men films, the young Stryker. He plays a different character in this film. He plays the brother of the big guy with the mouth nose piece combo. That's like a plastic transparent piece. He's in the film, and I think that one of my favorite things about this series is just how specifically inventive it is. There's all these little details. I really like when they come across that war boy and he thinks that he's gone to Valhalla and he's got the arrow on his head, and none of it is explicitly said. I mean, he says that he thinks he's there, but I like that visually we can understand what his mindset is, and it's not all spelled out for us. I really like that. There was that 15-minute chase scene that blew my mind, because when the guy was on the back of the bike on the war, right next to the war rig, and then he pulls out and he's jet skiing basically, and then the parachute comes up and then the camera goes around. All that was so phenomenal, and I was fine with just a jet ski, but the parachute is what made my mind explode. It was really, really great. Anya Taylor-Joy is good in the film. She's got a really striking face, so that does a lot of the heavy lifting, and by that I just mean she doesn't talk much. Apparently she has less than half the lines that Tom Hardy had in Fury Road, and so obviously for a role like that, and for someone who's a lead, you need someone who looks very distinct and is expressive, and that's why she was a good choice. There's also a cameo from Max. It wasn't Tom Hardy. That I felt was a little bit unnecessary, and I don't know. That was one of the things where it's oh, it's C-3PO in Rogue One, where it's okay, you didn't need to put that there, but it's fine, I guess. It didn't add anything, and I felt like someone like George Miller might be above that, but I don't know, maybe, I don't know. I mean, it's not the end of the world. It's okay. That basically wraps up my thoughts, I guess. I liked it a lot. It was really fun. It was inventive. It was exciting. It felt like a grand journey over a long period of time through someone's life. And yeah, I mean, did it meet my expectations? I liked it a lot. I don't think I liked it in the way that I was expecting to like it, but I'm still okay with the way that I like it. I think it's great. I would give it a 9. I don't know. My thing was I was really excited for this film, and then I saw Dune Part 2, and then I was like, okay, that's my favorite movie of the year, and it's going to be really hard for Furiosa to beat. I don't think this is as good as Dune Part 2. Again, it's kind of, sometimes it's stupid to try to compare movies that are so different. But I personally have more of an appeal towards Dune Part 2, but this film is still really great, and I would say it's my second favorite movie of the year. And it's an amazing feat. It's really great blockbuster, or should have been blockbuster filmmaking, spectacle filmmaking, I guess you would call it. And it's really disappointing that it's just like bombing at the box office. I just find it funny that everyone's always crying about how we need strong female characters, and then this comes out, and then those people do not go to see the film with the strong female character. And this is one where it's really great, and it's not in your face. This is like the anti Captain Marvel. It's like, it just is. It's very matter of fact. It's like this character happens to be a woman. It's not this character is about her being a woman. And obviously a film like that can be done really well, but it's going to be more of a ladybird than or a promising young woman than it is this type of film. But yeah, it's really great, and I highly recommend it. I also recommend King of the Planet of the Apes, but for the theater experience, I say do Furiosa in the theater. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes can wait if it's not already on streaming. Would not be surprised if it is already. That essentially wraps up my thoughts. Thank you so much for listening. I'm going to be having a Quiet Place Day 1 video sometime soon. I haven't seen it at the time of this recording. But that's going to be next. And also, I'll probably see Kinds of Kindness, the Yorgos Lanthimos movie. It's crazy that that's already coming out. So yeah, that'll be everything. Thanks so much for listening, and have a good one. Bye.